Every morning is an opportunity to connect with Jesus. Whether you're looking to get started or looking to grow more, DDPC is for you. Join us as we connect with Jesus together.
Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome to this 997th episode of Daily Devotions with Pastor Chris. I am your host, Pastor Chris, and it is amazing to be with you today. We are here. We're in the last week before our 1000th episode. It's been a little bit of a bumpy journey, only because we've had to pull back some of the regularity in order to land the 1000th on a particular date, which will be this coming Saturday, April 20th. We will celebrate 1,000 episodes of DDPC. And so here's what I want to ask is I'm attempting to try to bring some people on during our broadcast. And so I'm going to be reaching out to a couple of you and to see if that's something that you can fit those time slots. And these are for people really who are not local. I would love it if all of you who are local could be there with us. We're going to be at the Wyndham Hotel having a breakfast at 9:30 on Saturday, August 20th. And so I'd love to have you there. We're not going to be there for hours and hours and hours. It's a Saturday. So, everybody's got things to do. Saturday is actually a big work day for me. And so I know that people have time, allocated, and we're getting into baseball season, and baseball is kind of like a life taker over sport, and all those things. But man, if you can come even for a little while, it would be so great just to see everybody and put a name tag on and have some breakfast and sit down with other DDPCers and just kind of just share life together for a minute and build a little community, and so that's happening on Saturday. And if you haven't registered yet, you can register. Man, I think some of you have the links. You can throw them on the feeds. That would be great. I do have them, but I'm not prepared this morning. So, man, I got to tell you, I had a Sunday. I was probably more tired and more exhausted than any other single weekend in my life. I was wiped out, and having to preach 3 services and do the baby dedication that day was a lot. But it's okay. I mean, I'm not looking for sympathy. I'm just saying I was so tired because I had been traveling, and my son and I had gone away to a convention, and while we were so like going out there, we had to leave. We had to get up at 1:30 in the morning to be able to catch our flights and get to where we needed to be. And to save money, I landed in St. Louis, Missouri, which was a 3.5-hour drive to Springfield, Missouri. And then it was just all systems go for the whole conference, which meant late nights, early morning, and then the 3.5-hour drive back, and then all the travel back. And I got home at 2:00 in the morning, or in bed at 2:00 in the morning on Sunday morning, to turn around and get up at 5:30 in the morning to go do all those services. So I was just physically spent. And here's the other thing. My wife wasn't with me, and when my wife's not with me, I tend to wreck my diet and indulge on sugar and things that are not normally in my body. So that happened, and that wrecked my system. I mean, man, did my body revolt, and just the aches and the pains and it just let me know, like, hey, bro, you can't do this anymore. So anyway, it was a rough weekend physically for me, emotionally, spiritually, uh, just a high, absolute high, but physically challenging. So why do I say all that? Well, because I want to share with you something here on DDPC this morning. I want to share something that happened at the conference because it touched me so deeply and it encouraged me so deeply that I just wanted to share it with you because I could not have been more impressed with how things went down. Without getting into the weeds of all the details, I let me say it this way: this conference, there was, I would say, I don't know accurately, but I would say in between 8 and 10,000 men. Let's call it 10,000 for a nice round number. I don't think there's quite that many, but it doesn't matter. It's not the point. The point is it's a lot of people, and they were all guys, like all men. Now, understand, like, the opening session was just filled with testosterone. It was monster trucks and loud music and explosions and pyrotechnics and supercars and motorcycles, and they had 3 sanctioned boxing matches. Like, it was just basically, they were just like, let's take everything that feeds a man's testosterone and let's just put it in one gigantic opener and blast off, right? And so these guys are just, they are charged, man. They're just like, yes, they like feeding on this stuff. And so then we break into worship, and worship was wonderful. And then after worship, we had a word. There was a preacher there from Las Vegas, awesome preacher. I'm not going to mention names just because I want to just be. I don't know. It was a very, very public thing and very open. But anyway, for the sake of just protecting. So at the conclusion of the opening, at the opening services, the pastor gives an altar call, and it's a hard altar call. It's get up out of your seat and come down here to the floor. This is an arena. This is like getting down there is an effort. You know what I mean? And it looked like 1,000 guys went down there. It was awesome. It was like Billy Graham style stuff, and so it was beautiful. It was just beautiful to see men, like grown men, that were just getting beautifully saved and set free. And so then that night, we go back to our hotel, we go to bed, we get up early in the morning, and they have doors open at 7 a.m. And so here we go, and we're off into worship, and then we have a very, very high profile, well-known, highly sought after speaker that came out, and man, he started talking about, in the book of Kings, how you've got Ahab, and you have Jezebel, and you have Elijah, and you've got these these roles, right? And if you don't know the story of Ahab and Jezebel, it's really should read it. I mean, particularly this was about the prophets of Baal, and how Elijah had called down fire from heaven to burn up the sacrifice, and then all of those prophets were killed, and Jezebel gets mad and goes chasing after Elijah, and all these things. So, but what he was doing, though, was he was running a parallel and showing us men how the spirit of Asherah, the god, the seductress demon, and the false god Baal were prevalent in that time. And so we have these false gods that people worship, and they're gods of power and gods of seduction and sex. And then he showed how Ahab and Jezebel are types of those false gods. And but then he started running the parallels into America and talking about how America today has become a cult in many ways, and that we are worshiping Asherah and Baal in our country. And he's not wrong. He's 100% right. And I don't mean the church. I just mean like that's become, it's in our media, it's in our government, it's everywhere you look. It's, there's this glorification and this affirmation of in this adherence to tolerate sinful behavior, to write it off as somebody's belief system, and you should just leave people alone and accept them and love and all this stuff. So I mean, he was hitting it. I mean, closed fist punch, square in the face, not soft shoeing around it. I mean, it was hardcore and it was good. I mean, he had the crowd. They were locked in. And understand, like, this conference was not all Christians. There was a lot of business owners that bought multiple tickets and brought their brought their entire crew over. I met guys when we were waiting in line. I wasn't a Christian. He built fire trucks. His company builds fire trucks, and he's like, my boss just bought us all tickets, so here I am, and he had no idea what he was walking into. And so when you see 530 men get saved, it was a genuine thing. And guys, like, it's different for, when in churches, to see a man come down to an altar and to kneel like that. It's almost it's how do you say this appropriately? It's often more challenging, I think, for a guy to step out than it is for a woman. And so that happened. So anyway, this guy's on Saturday morning, he's sharing all these things. And then he kneels down on the stage, takes off his hat, and just kind of humbles himself in a position. And he begins to share how he felt that some of the activities that had happened from the night before were reminiscent of Baal and Asherah worship. And he started describing it and going through what happened. And I was listening to him, and I was like, wow, whoa, okay. First of all, I can't believe he's saying this, and secondly, I can see where he draws those parallels, but I think he's a little misguided in what happened. But he's so immersed into this message that he's seeing things through a different filter. And so I'm just kind of like listening. But all of a sudden, guys, the place is quiet. And then the pastor, who's the lead pastor of the church that's hosting the entire event, is there in the arena, and he stands up and he points to the guy on the stage and he says, "That's it. You're done. Get off." And he kicks him off the stage. Now, mind you, this is not like a small church. This is 10,000 people. And he's like, "Get off of the stage. You're out of line." Well, I mean, all these testosterone laden men that have been just like fed every guy thing, like this fight came up in them, and guys were like, let him preach. And then there were boos, and it was like, it turned so fast. And I was like, oh my goodness, what is happening here? And then that pastor gets up on the stage and he says this, and why am I bringing this all up to you? Because this is story happened. It was real life. It just happened this weekend, and it was the greatest display of both pastoral leadership, correction, and conflict resolution that I have seen in a public display ever in my life. I was blown away by what I saw. When I've shared this with my family, I was sharing it with Pastor Jacqueline and Pastor Sean last night after their baby dedication, and I just cry. I couldn't I'm so moved by it. So what happened? Well, really quick, you got to understand these two pastors are really good friends. They've been friends since, I believe they said 2006, and had each other in each other's homes, are involved and intertwined in each other's lives. And that the pastor who's the host pastor kicked his friend, who is one of the most highly sought after public speakers in the world, kicked him off of his stage and said, "You're out of line." And that guy said, "I receive it," and he walked off. So the head pastor gets up on the stage, and the crowd's booing and they're mad. They're bringing back, let him finish. And he says, and the pastor says, "Listen, I love my brother, but he's out of line." And he said, and then he started quoting Matthew chapter 18. And in Matthew chapter 18, the Bible says, I'm going to read it to you. It says, where does it say it? Oh, in verse 15, if your brother or sister sins, go and point out their fault just between the two of you. If they listen to you, you have won them over. And the pastor said, "Look, my brother and I spoke for 30 minutes before service started this morning." He said, "Never one time did he talk to me about his dissatisfaction or his concern about things that happened the night before. Not once did he discuss with me that what he wanted to share about that with anybody. He had no right to come up here and to drop a bomb like that on this platform without first having consulted with me. I am the one who's spiritually responsible for this house, for this event, and he should have come to me. And then whatever decision I made, whether he was 100% right, 100% wrong, or so, whatever decision I make, it's the other guy's job to submit to my authority in this house." And he wasn't being narcissistic. He was being biblical, because that is biblical. He's the pastor of the church, and he should have that. He should have that authority. But because it wasn't granted to him and it was done out of order, and he put that on display and he released that out there into the ears of 10,000 men, the pastor had a duty to bring it to correction, and he did. And then he said, so he talked for a good 3 or 4 minutes, calmed the audience down. I saw these guys go from boos to listening. People who started walking out started coming back. And then he said this. He said, "Here's what we're going to do." The worship team was already out there. They were on it. He said, we're going to worship for a minute, and then I'm going to come back and tell you what's happening next." And so the worship team played, and we dug into the Lord, and and then he comes back out. They had this big like promo video for another preacher, but that another preacher didn't come out. The pastor did. And so he came back out and he said, "Let me tell you what's happened." He said, "During worship, my son," he's got grown sons that are part of his church. He said, "My sons and I were talking with that speaker, and that speaker looked at him and he said, man," he goes, "what do you want me to do? I will submit to whatever you want to do." And he said, he goes, "I've asked him to come out here on this stage and to talk this out with me." And, I listen, for me as a dad, I was like, I was, when all this was going down, I was just mortified inside, because I was like, I've taken all this time, had my son miss a day of school, all the expense, all the time, the fatigue that's going to be on the other side of this, like all of this investment. And I was like, I was praying, and I was like, "Lord, the only thing that Russell is going to remember is this conflict." And I said, "Father, give them the wherewithal to come back out and to hug this out on the stage in a public way. Give them the maturity to know how to do that." Because sometimes when guys are pastors of that big of churches, and they're just that, their names are that famous, I'm not saying these guys are, I'm just saying a lot of times they're pretty narcissistic and egotistic, and they don't listen. They don't open their mind to any counsel. They just think that, "Oh, I'm famous and I'm big, because I'm great." But neither one of these guys were like that. And and so And so they did, and they came out and they put a pub height table on the stage, 2 chairs, and they sat down and they worked it out as if nobody was in the room. And they just talked, and they resolved the conflict quickly, and they showed love and grace. And then the pastor, and there were some more things that were exchanged, and some wonderful teaching that was taught, and things like that. But then at the end, the pastor said this. He said, whether my brother was right or wrong in what he said, at the end of the day, we have a disagreement. And he goes, there, I have a lot of people in my pulpit at my church, and his church is tens of thousands. It's a massive church. He said, I have a lot of speakers in my pulpit that I don't agree with everything that they believe in. But he said, but on the things that matter, we agree. And he said, across this auditorium, this arena today, there's no way that 10,000 men are going to agree on everything. We're going to disagree. But on the things that matter, we have got to be in unison. And he said, guys, we've got to learn to forgive. And man, even though it's hard and it's ugly and it's messy at times, sometimes you just have to address the situation, because if you tolerate it, the sin will dominate your life. It'll dominate your thinking. It'll dominate your heart. And how many times, guys, if you had friends or whatever that have been coming to, they finally came to church. They finally came to church after your invitation, after 100 invitations, and they started getting involved. And then all of a sudden things go south in a church, and there's division and disunity. And then they abandon the church because they're like, man, this is no different than the world. The church should be different than the world. It's got to be. And we must walk in unity. Doesn't mean we're going to always agree, but we move forward in order, and we move forward with grace. And that's the thing. Like the Bible says that with everything else, charity, the things that matter, focus, walk in unity in those things, but with everything else, with charity, and just, in other words, love each other anyway. You're not going to always agree, but man, and now obviously we can't, just be walking arm in arm with people that, that are, that preach absolute heresy. That's not what I'm saying. That's why I keep saying the things that matter, understanding who Jesus is, what he did for us on the cross, how we receive his gift of salvation, how we are supposed to walk out afterwards. But it doesn't mean that you just ignore the elephant in the room. You do address it, and then you walk it out in love. And most of the time, if both parties are amicable to counsel, to both listening and speaking, then you will come to an agreement, and you will walk it out in faith together. And man, so anyway, at the end of the day, that display just rocked me. So when we were driving home, I was talking, and we were talking about the conference, and my son said, Dad, he said, there was some really, really great nuggets in that whole conference for me. And he said, I am so glad that we came. He said, but I'll forever remember that how that was all resolved, and man, to me, it's like that is a lesson that was, I could speak that lesson, I could preach that lesson, I can live out that lesson in my own life. But because he saw it in that setting, on that size of a stage, that'll impact him for the rest of his life in the best possible way. So for that, I'm grateful. So anyway, I just wanted to kind of share with you that, man, if you find yourself in a situation where there is contention and division with a brother or sister, I'm not saying an enemy, okay? Don't walk yourself into a trap, but with somebody that you love, you know what? Sit at a table and talk it out, and hear them and find out where they come from, why they're feeling the way that they are. And you may not ever convince them of your way. You might be convinced of theirs. You don't know. but on the things that matter, walk in unity on that. All right. So that's it, man. That's the episode 997 today. Hope that you've enjoyed a little bit of my story there. I'll say hello to some of you this morning. Let's say hello to Mark G. Good to see you, my man. Elizabeth Orlando, Justin Thomas. What's it, man? I got to see your parents in church a couple of weeks ago. I was so blessed to see them. It was such a joy, man. God bless you, Scott Blakeman and Diane Riley. Tom Keefe on with us today. Maurice, nice to have you. Jackie, good to see you. Heather, good to have you. Benny, nice to see you today, my man. Paula Lavish, Robin Champ, God bless you. Hey, Reverend Paul Cortez in the house today. What's up, my man? Pastor there in Norwalk. Good to see Athena Detlefs today. Tony Fecciadori, God bless you. Kate, good to have you today. Jeanette Lynn Willis, wife of the year, good to see you. Pastor Dave Brazina on with us today. KJ Pieger, good to have you on. Abs Now, Abigail, good to see you. Esther Grantham, world's greatest Sunday school teacher. Florcita, nice to have you on today. God bless you. Good to have Lynn Pace and John Cookson and Colette and Tom Jagoda and Eileen Toma and Tara Rose and Scott Dobler and Michael Ray Willis and Marty Main. Good to have you. Sherry Blakeman and I hit a let's see, Jacqueline Campoli and Rich Papsco. Good to see you. Emily Griscom, Denise and Yvonne LeBlanc. Good to have Deb Click on today. Julie Chandler in the house with us today. God bless you. Nice to see Daniel Lozovikas on, my friend. God bless you, Daniel. Good to have Cindy Wood on today. That's my aunt, hailing from Oklahoma. Good to have you on. Brian Budd, what's up, buddy? Man, I saw you at church yesterday. I was started to go and say hi in the lobby, but I was minutes from having to go on the platform. So and you were talking to somebody, but anyway, I want you to know that it was on my heart to say hi. So good to have you though, bud. Let's see who else is here. Carlene Kopchak, good to see you, Carlene. God bless you this morning. Michelle, nice to have you on today. Jenny, good to have you. Nice to have Nick DeLugo and Lauren Lopez. Nice, good to see both of you guys on, ladies, on today. Eric Light on today. God bless you, Eric. Pastor Frank Finkel on today. Pastor Frank is getting ready to get his ordination. So happy for you, my friend. Good days ahead. Jimmy Gore in the house. Thank God bless you, Jimmy. I'm glad I saw you, man, because I've got to put that on my agenda for tonight's meeting. That thing we talked about. Carrie Ann McAndrew. God bless you, Carrie Ann. Gina Michaels. Nice to see you, Gina. Let's see. Good to have. Let's see who else is on that I haven't said hi to yet. Dawn Marie on today. God bless you, Dawn Marie. Priscilla Caraballo and her amazing husband, Carlos, if you are with her. But Priscilla, good to see you this morning. Alicia Soderberg, God bless you. Welcome today. And I think that covers at least most of it. All right, guys. Man, you guys hung on. It's crazy. Well, God bless you. I've got more to do than I can shake a stick at, so got to get started. All right, that's it, man. God bless you all. Love y'all. Thank you. Hope you can be with us on Saturday for DDPC episode 1000. And but until then, guys, I will see you tomorrow.